What is up, Cabbage crew? It is your boys, Matt and John, here for episode 6 of the Cabbage Crew podcast. John, I came to see you this weekend.
You did. You surprised me. You showed up.
I just showed up.
With no one else.
Went to a wedding this weekend. I saw John on the way back. We had some fun adventures. Gambling till 5 a.m.
Mind you, this guy hasn't done any gambling until like a week ago.
Yeah, going gambling 3 times in 1 week and living walking distance of a casino is probably not a good thing. Probably not a good thing. So, yeah, let's get into the topic of the day, which is was the Fire Nation right, or did they have a point?
Oh, I thought it was Gamblers Anonymous.
It's probably going to be a couple weeks from now. Yeah. Yeah, but was the Fire Nation right? John, if you want to start us off, we'll talk about mainly the Fire Nation, but a couple other minor conflicts that our heroes run into, and maybe some of the core characters run into, of where those characters where their ideology is correct. So starting with the Fire Nation, and going from there. So what's your thoughts on, was Fire Lord Sozin correct in his mentality?
I don't blame him for thinking that. Thinking in the sense of like spreading. It's not going where you think it's going, okay? I don't blame him for having the idea of like spreading what is in the Fire Nation, peace, prosperity, to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. How he gets there is the problem.
Right.
I think obviously a more peaceful, non-violent, non-genocidal way of spreading that wealth and like doing trade and diplomacy is a much better way of providing a Fire Nation influence throughout the Earth Kingdom, and even as far north and south as the Water Tribes, and even as high as the Air Temples. So, like, that's just what I think, and like, I don't blame him for necessarily getting there. I actually, I probably view it that, you know, I liked how everything was a little bit separate as it was, like originally, because it's not like they were restricted with travel, right? Because like Aang visits the Fire Nation, visits Kuzan. Right. Anybody else could probably do that, especially with the Fire Nation having dragons, they can fly, and talk and get to know each culture and just communicate, trade. So, like, I would say, like, I would probably have just been neutral and not done, like, I wouldn't have wanted to spread peace and prosperity to the rest of the world. But I don't blame Sozin for having that mentality, and I'm reverting it back, saying, like, it's just how he got there with the violence and genocide and all that good-natured things.
All that good-natured things. Yeah, I would say it's interesting how Roku, to his best friend, just turned it down instead of trying to learn more. Because really, he was like, that kind of whole conversation, I guess, could have even been written a little bit better. I understand why they wrote it that way, but it is interesting how he's like, we should expand this peace and prosperity, and Roku just shut it down, thinking that he meant let's take over, because he's like, the 4 nations are what they are for. And I understand they have different cultures and maybe even different lifestyles of how they want to handle certain situations. But I do feel like spreading good, because the Fire Nation does have did have the richest and probably the best structure, right? Like they seem like they, out of the four nations, the water tribes very separate. Like there's two different water tribes. The Earth Kingdom, we have seen multiple examples of the Earth Kingdom having different leaders in a sense of either if it's just like in cities or if it's different leaders trying to take over the entire Earth Kingdom. Where like the Fire Nation seems like, and then you have the Air Nomads, obviously four different, completely different temples. They seem like they are a little bit more together, but like when it comes to like not attacking each other or anything, but it is four different temples very far apart. Where like Fire Nation is one location, seems like one political, um, political way of thinking. You have the Fire Lord, and
Right.
that's kind of that one culture.
Yeah.
Earth Kingdom has different cultures. Water Nation has different cultures. Air Nomads, same culture, but four different temples.
Right.
So I could see them saying, like, you know what, maybe it's better to have it the way we have, because we don't know what happened prior to that. We don't know any type of conflicts that might have happened in Roku's life besides the one that happened when he was before Sozin.
Right.
So there might have been a time where maybe the Earth Kingdom was a mess again. We've seen that happen multiple times.
Right.
Maybe there was a situation where there was a civil war between the water tribes. And he thought that there was maybe better for them to have a different structure of their politics.
Sure.
And if it, and kind of go into Kavira, and we'll talk about her later, but it's like you can join us and we're going to make sure you are living life better if you do join us. But if not, it might be by force.
Right.
So it is interesting that he just shut that, he as in Roku just shut that entire conversation down, because I do think that they could have done it a better way and maybe made it peaceful.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, when Sozin and Roku are talking in their private conversation during Roku's wedding, because it was so important, Sozin. Okay, but yeah, I mean, he Sozin was very calm and collected. He seemed to like he wanted to express his vision to, at the time, his best friend, and I actually agree with you. I think if Roku would have like not immediately shut it down, but actually thought about it for like to say, Sozin, give me a day. Like, just give me a day.
Let me dance.
Let
Let me dance. I'll come back to you tomorrow.
But yeah, so I think if Roku just sat on it for like a little bit, I think it would have been a more peaceful way of going about it, because I think having Roku immediately shutting it down, it resulted into Sozin going it about the way that he did. And because like it was out of anger and frustration that his friend his best friend could not see his vision. And I think Roku would have been the more of like, the restraint and peaceful type, where maybe Sozin would have been obviously a much more aggressive, like, we'll do this by force if we have to. So, but with two of them at the same time, if you're best friends, you're gonna come to at least more often than not. But
you would think they would come to
they come to like a more rational solution to a greater world that Sozin envisions. Like, I mean, he's very vague with it. He just says peace and prosperity that will spread.
Right.
It's just vague. Like, he doesn't go say like, how about it? So I would have been very curious to see how he would have done it if Roku would have said yes.
Yeah, going back to like the rebellion part of it. I mean, we see that in every day, right? It's like the daughter asks her dad if she can go to the party, and he says no, and she just sneaks out and then gets wasted and does something stupid. Where it's like, well, maybe if she just sat down and they had a conversation, the father would have been like, "Go to this party. I'll pick you up at 11."
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
and or I'll pick you up at midnight. You know, text me if you need me. Don't get too drunk. You know, it's like, you know what I mean. And it's like the conversation, and then usually that's the way to go about it. If you're, I'm not a parent, but you know that's the way to go
Right.
about it in any situation. Like sitting down, having a conversation, finding out what both sides think, coming to an agreement. Um, so yeah, I mean, and I think jumping to Korra again, I know, you know, I don't want me to jump to Korra too much, but we do see that in Korra where all the nations kind of come together a little bit. You see the new Fire Lord, Zuko's daughter, in Korra. And she comes together with the president of the Republic nations, I believe it is, and then the city.
Right.
Can't think of the city's name. Um,
Not
and then
Republic City, but
Republic City, yes,
okay.
Republic City, yeah, which is the capital of the Republic nations. And then you see, so you see him, the Fire Lord together. You obviously you see Korra with them, so you see like a bunch of different tribes kind of coming together in a sense, different nations coming together, which I don't know if they did that before. It was very much four different nations, four different cultures, four different worlds. Um, where it's like maybe if Roku sat down and was like, "Okay, I'm the Avatar, so let's have kind of a panel. Let's get the southern and northern tribe leaders. Let's get the Fire Lord. Let's get the king of Ba Sing Se or queen of Ba Sing Se. You know, and then one or two representatives of the air. I believe the Air Nation does have like a leader monk. I might not.
Yeah,
I
it's. I
might.
mean, it's more of a It's more of a
So
council. Yeah.
the council. So like one or two members from the council, and we can have our own council of 8 to 10 people from different nations, and then the Avatar can kind of be the peacemaker between them of how to make prosperity and peace across the world.
A pre-White Lotus.
White Lotus. Yep. So that would have
So
been an interesting way of doing it. Um, but it would be, it kind of takes you a different conversation, but it is interesting to see what conflicts were happening and what the world looked like in Roku's lifetime. Like, was the entire world a mess besides the Fire Nation?
right.
Because for him to say that, there has to be a reason.
Right. I actually have two questions for you. The first question is when Roku sees the evidence of Sozin expanding into the Earth Kingdom territory.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I immediately thought that wall was Ba Sing Se.
No, it definitely wasn't.
Well, what was it then? Because like that was a big wall.
Well, we don't know what cities were there 140 years before Aang that were no longer were there. It definitely wasn't Ba Sing Se.
It looked like it.
Yeah, I mean I mean, Omashu has a big wall too. So
Right.
for all we know, there might have been 6 big cities like Omashu that weren't as big as Ba Sing Se, and over the last 100 years, they've all fell, and Omashu was the last one.
That's
you know.
that's
So yeah, so I mean, but we don't know. Again, we don't know what the world looked like before we kind of do, but we don't know really what the war looked like before Aang got frozen. So there could have been cities that we don't know of. The desert could have looked different. Even Aang was like, "Oh, the little town they go to, like, oh, it's not the same," you know.
Yeah.
And in Korra, it's not the same. It's a lot bigger. It's like an actual structured place. So I mean, the world changes, obviously, and even in our world, so their world could definitely change too.
Yeah. My other question. I'm glad that got clarified because I guess that could that definitely could be true. My second question is like, and maybe it's just me trying to find the best in the best in people or things, but like, why do you think Sozin immediately responded with like violence, like immediately? Like, why? Like, do you think it was a power trip because he was Fire Lord and he thinks he can do it, or do you think was he always an evil person? Because like he's depicted as like a pretty nice guy, like What gives the whole 180 is what I want to ask you. What do you
No,
think?
I don't have an answer of that. I mean, I would love to see, again, we talked about it last week, that the mini series, like a 6 episode series, but it follows Sozin. So it's like, episode 1 maybe starts with Roku leaving and it
Yeah.
follows his life. Because maybe he was, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if Sozin always had the mentality of we will be peaceful and then something happened. And then it was like, you know what, never mind. Let's take it by force.
Right.
Did he go to that city with open arms? Or
Right.
did he just send it for dragons? Like,
Well, maybe. I mean, maybe the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Maybe it was Zozen's dad. Maybe his dad influenced him at a young age of what a Fire Lord should be. And so maybe it was more of like from a childhood memory, childhood experience that he had. You never
yeah,
know.
that brings up something that is very interesting. When they announce the Fire Lord is Roku,
Mm-hmm.
they come up. It's his birthday.
You
His
mean on the
father.
Avatar? Not you said Fire Lord.
I'm sorry. When they announce the Avatar is Roku,
Yeah.
it's his birthday. They shared a birthday, and the first thing he says is, "Did something happen to my father?
Mm-hmm.
Was there something going on?
Oh,
Was there
I
a
know
war
where you're
going on?"
going with that.
I mean, I don't know if we're having the same mentality, but like, was there a war going on?
Yeah.
Was there conflict? I mean,
An assassination, like
assassination, maybe.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I wasn't going there, but but it's just for all we know, there was a battle in the Earth Kingdom, and the Fire Nation was now involved. For all we know, there was a civil war going on in the Fire Nation. We don't know.
It's
I
true.
doubt that because again, this is 30 years
Yeah.
again
Yeah.
or so before Roku came back. So we don't know what the world. I would love to see what the world looked like then, because we
Right.
only know what this world looks like in chunks.
Mm-hmm.
We know what it looks like for the 5 years that we see Korra. We only know what this world looks like for the couple months, 10 months, give or take, the Aang.
Mm-hmm.
We only know what certain pieces, even from the novels and stuff. We only know what this world looked like for certain times and time frames. So the world could look very different when Roku was 15 years old and it was his birthday than
Right.
what it was when he was 45 years old and getting married. You
Right.
know, so a lot of different. Why do you think his dad was going to get assassinated?
Well, no, I'm just saying it's just a theory. It's
Yeah.
just like you never know what he meant by then. But I guess it could just be simply with tradition of like any time that the the sages like come up like in a group, like it's about the Fire Lord, like it's something very important. So it just might be like that was Sozin's conclusion of like, oh my gosh, like we're in peacetime and what's going on with
Mm-hmm.
like it must be my father's situation. So it might be as simple as that, but it's interesting to
Well,
bring
his father
bring
wasn't at his birthday, so something had to be going on.
up. That's true.
You know, so it is one of those.
Maybe he was in the back. Maybe he was like, I am gonna see this from afar.
Well, but then why would he be questioning what was if his father was okay? His
No, I
father
know.
wasn't there. So, and that's an interesting way of looking at what might have been going on in the world and
Mm-hmm.
why maybe there was conflict, and then within the 40 years when he took over as Fire Lord, he fixed the conflict and was like, I can fix the Fire Nation. Why can't I fix the rest of the world?
Right.
So, and maybe the way he fixed it was taking over. The,
What
but we
when do
don't
you
know.
think when do you think Sozin assumes power? Like when like in terms of when Roku leaves,
Hmm.
how long do you think it takes for?
No idea. I mean, maybe something did happen to his father. It's just 5 years later. We don't know.
Right.
I don't even know how old his father was.
Right.
So, um, okay. Well, I think we're in agreement with that. Maybe we'll have some disagreements with some of the other ones we think of. So we're gonna. I don't know if you have a list. I have a mini list of characters that then the Aang gang and the Korra gang run into, and their mentalities being a little bit different. Do you have to say something before we start?
No.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah. So minor characters. They could be plot lines. It could be a 1 episode arc of a character that has different ideologies and maybe goes against the group's ideologies. And the question would be, are they right or are they wrong? You want
Yes.
to start?
Um. we'll start off with the Mechanist.
Okay.
What do you think about the like Mechanist and how, selling weapons to keep his tribe, his people, his hodgepodge group of Earth Kingdom refugees together at the Northern Air Temple?
Yeah, it was defend his family. So the world was very separated. So I mean, the argument is just they're going to use them, and then once they don't need them anymore, they're going to kill them. That's the easy argument to make. So the argument of that is kind of like the ethical argument of like, would you kill your own family to save a stadium full of people? It's like that's like an ethical thing. So it's like, would he sacrifice his son, his handicapped son, and the 30 people he's traveling with, and they all get imprisoned or killed
Right.
to not help the Fire Nation continue winning the war? Will that stop the Fire Nation? Because it's different than saying sacrifice my son to win the war. They're already winning the war. He didn't know that Aang would be back. So, you're essentially asking somebody help the Fire Nation continue win the war or win it quicker and save your family. I can see where he says, I mean, he obviously wasn't an evil person. So, to be honest, I agree with his decision. I think
Yeah,
his decision makes sense.
I agree. I mean, it's it's between like death to everybody or like helping the bad guys. It's like and
Mhm,
helping the bad guys and save your small family or your
mhm.
big roughly large family of asylum seeking Earth Kingdom refugees. Um, and so I mean it's a tough decision. I mean it's not easy, but yeah, I mean I probably would agree with it too. Unfortunately, though I'd try to find a way out, like too at the same time. Like I'd be making the weapons, selling it to them, quote unquote, and then like at the same time I'd be like, okay, like we need to find some way to get out of here or like find a new
Yeah.
home. Like no matter like even if it's like next to impossible, try to think of something.
Yeah, you would wonder why, I guess because his son was handicapped, but you would wonder why they didn't try to find refugees somewhere else, like either if it was Ba Sing Se or Mashu, or I mean, I guess there was just no good, safe place to live. So, um, yeah, yeah, I think what he did was right. Jet, now
Hmm.
Jet had the mentality of taking people down, taking Fire Nation down, but at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that two different mentalities. So the Mechanist's mentality was save my family at what cost. Jet was take down the Fire Nation at what cost.
Right.
Um,
You can say a whole lot, and I don't mean to get like too political or anything, but like
mhm,
with like doing drone strikes against terrorism, like you might be
mhm,
killing civilians in the process, like innocent
yeah,
people, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But
It's the same, man.
yeah, I I probably I mean that doesn't sit right with me. I think I would agree with the group
Right.
mentality there. Um, no matter how many are in there, if there's even just like one, it just wouldn't sit right with me. I mean, um,
Miss Pretty.
Miss Pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think Jet. The thing is Jet seemed like a good leader, and felt like he
Oh
was,
yeah.
and it felt like he was like made a new life. It's like if anything, try to get the people out of there
Mm-hmm.
and build an actual new city in the woods. And instead of just having a bunch of kids, and it's like, all right, there's maybe 30 kids, have maybe 200 people living amongst the trees out of the Fire Nations. It's because it seemed like the way they're talking, it's like Fire Nation can't find us. We're way up in the trees. This is maybe a hilly area, So it was like because it seemed like it was kind of on the edge, kind of a hilly area. So it's like, okay, they can't really take their tanks there unless they burn down the entire forest. They can't really find us. So like you would think that would be, yeah. It's like it's more of a Jet's point of view is a little bit more of a like revenge. How can we take down the Fire Nation, and less of how can we save the civilians from the
Right.
Fire Nation.
Right.
So thought we were going to disagree on that one, but maybe not.
Mm.
Long Fang.
Mm.
So I
No.
want to take a twist on Long Fang because
Sure.
Long Fang obviously wasn't doing anything great. But the twist would be the main aspect of what Long Fang is, not the hold Appa hostage and be against the Avatar, but more of the keep staying out of the war and having obviously someone that's not a political genius as a puppet
Mm-hmm.
and staying out of the war completely and not letting civilians know about the war. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm so in favor.
I kind of am. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of am.
I don't. It's like one of those things to where like I probably, like, if I was a leader, I'd probably like disagree with it.
Mm-hmm.
If I was like in his shoes, I would disagree with it. But I understand where he's coming from, and I don't think that's I don't think that's the best way to do it. But in order to keep in order to keep his own people peace, then that's a positive. Because you don't want chaos of like, oh my gosh, we're going to be in a war, and like we're going to be sending off our children off to fight, and fathers and
Right.
sons. And so like, and on that end, like I can totally see where he's coming from.
The military had
I'm more neutral with it. I'm just saying, I unfortunately cannot decide on which one I would do.
See, the military.
Sorry, let me rephrase.
Go ahead.
I probably would have the people know about the war.
Okay.
But
stay out of it.
But in turn, sorry.
But stay out of it.
Probably.
See, mine's almost the opposite. Mine's actually the exact opposite. What I would have done, there's obviously a military, right? We see them we see them on the walls. I mean, the military was fighting against Uncle Iroh. So there's obviously a military that knows.
Right.
How big is that military? Who knows? There's Dai Li agents. So they have people that fight. I would still have a military and have an ongoing military, maybe hide how many numbers there are. Because you're not going to freak someone out by saying, hey, want to be part of our military. Hey, you have an 18-year-old son who knows earthbending. We don't belong to the military. Because they might not think there's a war going on, but it's like you need a military still. Like, we need people to protect our walls. Sometimes there's conflict nearby when it comes to Earth Kingdom, and we might have to have people go help because Earth Kingdom sometimes are in a mess. So like there's a way around. Hey, we need to build the military up, but not tell them about 100-year war against another nation that's taking over the world. It is crazy also because no one in that nation knew that airbenders weren't a thing.
Right.
No one knew that airbenders were extinct. So, which is odd because when Aang airbends, they say he's the Avatar, but they didn't see him do anything else besides airbend.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know airbenders are extinct, which is interesting. So if I was Long Fang and I was running the military, I would still build up my military for the opportune moment to strike, either if it is something like finding the Avatar, or if it is just protecting our walls, or if the three nations, or two nations, I guess, like if Hakoda and the tribe got there and were like, hey, we're building an alliance group to take on the Fire Nation, even if Aang wasn't even around, even if Aang was never found, I would have had still a stronghold military to build, but I also wouldn't have told my civilization, like the whole civilization about it, to keep peace. So that is an interesting spin on.
I don't mind. That's a good one.
Just because it's like, think about how much could have been different if Aang showed up and instead of him being like, we need to maintain order, if he, again, having a conversation, been like, look, Aang, here's what's happening. 100 years have gone by. No one in this city knows about the war. We held it from them. We are trying to build a military. We want to keep our people safe. Now that we have you and you're here, we got your boy Appa.
Right.
Like,
We have him in the cell.
here's a piece. Yeah, here's a piece. We didn't know what he was. We didn't know who he was. We didn't know he was yours. We just found him,
Right.
and he's here.
Right.
That's our peace offering.
Matt, I
You
hate to
went.
interrupt, but can we pause for a second?
Mm-hmm. 1 second.
I need to go do something.
Yeah. So anyway, what I was talking about. I don't even know what I was talking about, but let's just go to the next person.
Long Fang.
I'll just cut it off. I mean, I'll cut it off. Yeah, long fame. I don't know where I was, and I was about to be done, so I can just
I'm
cut it
sorry.
off somewhere. You're fine. All right. So going into the next person. I mean, do you have any others in Avatar: The Last Airbender? Do you see the
I
point of
mean,
view?
Sorry.
Good.
Okay. I mean, this should be a relatively easy one, but Hama.
See, Hama's kind of like Jet in the sense of like you're going after revenge instead of a solution.
Yeah.
You're like your solution is hurting the innocent people. Like in that town, those people have nothing to do with the war.
Right.
You know, I mean, like if you didn't tell me, that town would have been an Earth Kingdom town. If I was just watching a random episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I saw the beginning and then walking around the town. So it's like, what she could have done is get away and been like, I have this new method. I'm going to return home and I can lead this war to victory. Like I can lead us to victory.
Right.
Like go at night. We got this.
Mm-hmm.
So like her solution was just torture random people in town for the next X amount of years, and not taking her ability to the military. So,
right.
So I think in Avatar: Last Airbender, I mean, I would really think that's all of them. I do think there's a couple in Korra. I think Amon makes a relatively good point.
Yes.
And again, a good point. Korra does this very, very much for all four of their villains. It's like a character that's a good point and has an ideology that makes sense, but then they go a little too far. Right? With Amon, is there a little bit of a power struggle between benders and non-benders? Yeah. Can we find a solution for it? Probably. Is that solution take away all the bending of everybody? Probably not. And I think it's Torlock, I believe his name is in season 2. In season 2,
I think so.
Unalaq. I think it's Unalaq. Torlock's the father. Unalaq. Unalaq's point of view is spirits should be back to what they were pre-Avatar, which is put spirits on Earth and not in the spirit world, not hidden in the spirit world. I don't really agree with that because you got people like, you got spirits like the Face Dealer. You got some evil spirits. So I don't agree with anything he said, but I can understand the point.
Right.
Obviously not the evil Avatar. Season 3, Red Lotus, no leaders. Probably not. And then Kavira. I think Kavira and Amon have the two best points. Kavira was right. She was uniting the Earth Kingdom and helping people, even if they didn't want to unite with her and they chose to, but they're like, I not really want to. It was like she would still provide for them.
Right.
I think Kavira, you can make an argument, was kind of right.
Like in a sense.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, she went after the Metal Clan, which probably wasn't right. I don't think she went after Ba Sing Se. She probably would have. But I think the argument of having one leader provide for everybody and having none of the territories, they're all territories. None of the territories stronger than any of the others.
With a dictatorship.
It was a dictatorship. I mean, she was a dictator, but like that mentality in the show of how they did it or how she did it was obviously too far, but I could see where she thought she was doing a good thing at the beginning.
Right. Kind of, I mean, different situation, but roughly the same outcome as with like the Phoenix King. Knows I wanted to be the ruler of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Or Chin the Great, Chin the Conqueror,
Chin the Conqueror.
or Chin the Great to them. Chin the Great.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a couple different characters with those mentalities that just went a little too far. That's kind of Korra's whole thing. Like every show has that, or every season has that theme of like a character that's kind of right, but they go to a bit too far. And how they got the power is because they were kind of right, and then they went too far with their mentality. So, yeah, I mean, any others before we kind of wrap it up here? Any other stories you want to tell? Troy, our friend Troy. Shout out to Troy.
Shout out to Troy.
Shout out to Troy. We went to a bar in Pittsburgh, and this guy would not leave us alone. And I think he had a crush on one of our friends. But man, shout out to Troy.
That was an interesting situation.
Interesting situation. Did he have a point in his mentality?
No.
What he was thinking? Did he just want friends? No. Did he just want friends? He could have been a great time.
That's true.
That's true. All right. Well, we don't have anything else. We can close it up here. Wrap it up.
Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got.
That's all I got. That's all I got. All right. Well, don't forget to subscribe. Check out our Instagram, which I have not posted at all on.
Please subscribe, viewers.
Let's subscribe to the Cabbage and be a Cabbage crew member. How about that?
Or a Cabbage Patch. Be part of the Cabbage Patch.
I don't know if I can say that like 5 times fast. Cabbage Patch, Cabbage Patch, Cabbage Patch, Cabbage Patch, Cabbage Patch. There you go. Yeah. Be part of the crew. As you can tell, I'm very tired because I've driven 50 hours in the last 3 days.
And you'll be driving another several plus hours for certain events coming up.
Certain events coming up that we're going to be going to this summer. So very, very interesting. All right. Peace out.
Thanks, Cabbage True. See you later.